508, so most of the times I wouldn't see it, but I was in there doing email.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I will call the first of two meetings that we have tonight to order. First meeting is the Villarica Public Facilities Authority meeting, and I will call that meeting to order at 6 o'clock on March the 6th, 2018. Do I hear an adoption of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. All in favor? Unanimous. Tab A, appointments. We have appointments for the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary for the 2018 calendar year. Who's handling this?
Yeah, we have no names.
We have no names on here.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, traditionally, the chair of the Public Facility Authority has also been the mayor. Again, that's been tradition, but it doesn't have to remain tradition. But from the very outset of our Public Facility Authority, the mayor has served as the chair of the Public Facility Authority. So I think it'd be appropriate to open up the nominations for chair of the Public Facilities Authority.
Move to nominate the mayor as chairman of the Public Facilities Authority.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh, okay. I refuse. No, I'm just kidding. That would kind of throw a monkey wrench in it, wouldn't it? Do I hear a nomination for vice chairman?
Traditionally, that has been the mayor pro
Mayor Pro
tem.
Tem. I nominate the Mayor Pro Tem as the vice chairman of
Second.
Public Facility Authority.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Now, secretary is
And-
secretary. Huh?
For the secretary. Now, who has traditionally been the issue?
Traditionally, it has been the city clerk.
Yeah.
This is all important information y'all could tell me before we started, but
Well, you're learning.
I agree.
I'll nominate the city clerk as the secretary of the Public Facility Authority.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second to nominate Elisa as our secretary. All in favor? Unanimous. Moving right along, tab B, incumbency certificate. Authorization for the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary to sign and execute the incumbency certificate with BB&T. And who has that?
I do not have that. I can tell you that the incumbency certificate that you turn in every year to the bank that is holding the bonds on the Public Facilities Authority to tell them who is authorized to sign as chairman, vice chairman, as chair, vice chair, and secretary of the organization, which you just elected. So I don't have the certificate, but we'll get it. But you do need to have an authorization from the Public Facility Authority for the three of you to sign that document stating that you have indeed just been elected as the officers for the forthcoming year.
It's in the packet.
Okay, so we just need to sign that packet and get it to Elisa?
You need to vote to authorize it to be signed.
Okay, I'll make a motion to authorize the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary to have the ability to sign and execute the incumbent certificate with the BB&T.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous? Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned
Bye.
at 6:04 p.m. That was a short meeting.
Barber shop.
Okay.
Can we do the
With that, welcome to the Mayor and Council meeting from March the 6th, 2018. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. And we will have our invocation by Council Member Danny Carter, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will please remove your hats and stand.
Let us bow our heads. And most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for our nation. Thank you for the freedoms we have in our nation. We ask that you would lead, guide, and direct those that are governing in the federal government, that they would draw us all closer together. We could become one nation under God. We ask that you would be with us tonight as we conduct the business of Villarica. Lead, guide, and direct us in decisions we make, that it may be betterment to the city and to the people who live in the city. These things we ask in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, our first order of business is ceremonial presentations, and we have an employee that has been here, I guess, as long, 15 years of service. So I've known Terry since I started with the city back in 2001. You started 2003, so a long time. And Terry works in our police department, and if you'll come forward, I'm going to meet you down here, and we have a certificate for her.
She wants to give a speech too. Terry loves talking in front of people. Terry's been with us 15 years. She's served in several capacities. She's been administrative assistant. She's been receptionist. She's been court clerk for a little bit, or helped out. She's assistant court clerk. Now she's our GCIC, I couldn't think of the term. She handles all of the computer stuff as far as the GCIC. She also helps write grants. She does about everything. And we really appreciate the job that she does and still does with us. She turned in her notice. She came to me and she said, "All right, I'm turning my notice." And I said, "Well, no." She said, 7 years from today, I'm gone. I said, "Well, I'm going to make sure I plan to get that taken care of." And I said, so she's still got at least 5 years. So we appreciate the job she's done and congratulations.
We are indeed blessed as a city to have fine employees, and Terry is a person that represents those employees very well. We need to adopt the agenda. Any changes? Do the council have any changes to the agenda as printed? If not, I would entertain a motion that we adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, multiple seconds, to approve the agenda. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, city manager's report.
Are we skipping council
You missed the
updates?
council updates.
Oh, I did.
Jumped over that.
Okay. Council updates. I have a few, but I will yield to everybody else, and then I've got a couple of things.
Depending on what happens with the bypass and that sort of thing, 2 of the major intersections, actually the whole bypass pretty much runs through the middle of Ward 3. And so it's really not my people, because I can't think of anybody that lives in the city that isn't involved in going through those intersections. So it involves all of us. But I just want to see us come up with some solutions for people getting through those 3 ways. And also, I'll just mention that I did talk to Senator Dugan today in regards with GDOT. You may already have the information. I heard, all I know is some of what he told me about why this is happening was contradictory from maybe what GDOT, some of the things we've gotten from GDOT, so.
I think
all.
we've been had.
Anybody else? Okay. I want to, I mentioned this Thursday before, our young ladies, our Villa Rica High School girls basketball team made it to the Final Four in the state championship. And they unfortunately lost Saturday night, but they're not losers in our books. And our boys basketball team did well, as they did they had a really good season as well and went to the second round of the playoffs. So I have talked to Glenn Harding, the principal at Villa Rica High School, and asked that team and the coaches and parents, I'm sure, will want to be here, come to the April meeting to be recognized. They represented our city very well, and it's not often that the team from Villa Rica, I think there's only one other girls basketball team that made it this far, and so very, very proud of those young people. And I also pointed out, my wife actually pointed this out to me the other day. There was an article or a briefing in some publication that I saw, and what it's really about is a lot of these athletes and non-athletes and scholars are getting college scholarships to colleges all over the Southeast, and that's what it's really about. And I was pleased, and am pleased to be a part of a city. I can tell you that Villa Rica High School had more scholarships to young athletes than all the other schools in Carroll County combined. So I'm very proud of that, and that means something to me personally as a recreational professional. So.
Did you know that you can get a scholarship for fishing?
You can get a scholarship for fishing, but we were too late for that.
You're right about that. Golf.
And I would echo Councilmember McPherson's comments about the intersections. I mentioned something about this Thursday in the work session. Traffic has become a nightmare in Villa Rica, and more so probably in the last 6 months than in the last 14 years that I've been here. And I think it's a combination of a lot of things. The other night was a bomb hit, and we had two 18-wheelers involved in accidents on either side of the city. We also had, I think, accidents in downtown with motor vehicles. The train, the ever-present train, was blocking the intersection once again, and it was literally at a standstill for a while. And so I think that this council needs to be very reactive instead of proactive, since it's already here. And I've asked the city manager to look at the possibility of traffic lights at the end of Punkintown Road and 61, and also at Industrial Boulevard and 101 Rockmart Road. And Councilmember McDougal also mentioned a traffic signal at 78 and the interchange that goes up to Mirror Lake Parkway, Liberty Road. So we're looking at that. We're talking to GDOT to try to see what's involved. Those are all state highways like every other road. We have one traffic light, just for if y'all ever get in a trivia contest about Villa Rica, we have one traffic light in all of Villa Rica that we have control of, and that's the one at Shoreline Parkway and Mirror Lake and Punkintown Road. So we have to work with GDOT, and I've asked State Representative Collins to help us with this, and so hopefully we'll have some positive information to come back to you with. And I'm also talking with the chief and our city manager about possibility of putting some officers out there perhaps as a stopgap measure until we get some traffic lights. But we are aware as a council that traffic is a problem here in Villa Rica, and we're going to try to work through it as best we can. So please bear with us along those lines. I don't see it on the agenda, but that doesn't necessarily, with my eyesight, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not on here. Is it on the agenda to revisit the senior discount?
It's in the financial update.
Okay, all right. Then that one has been taken care of. We have a meeting coming up a week from Monday, 6 o'clock at City Hall, to discuss the back-end parking issue or solution or non-solution on Wilson Street. So I would encourage as many of you as can show up to that, please do so. Our staff has already been in contact with all the businesses on Wilson Street that are affected, and I know they'll show up, but everybody has a vested interest in this, so I would encourage all of you to show up, and if you don't have comments, at least be a part of it and know what's going on as far as your city is concerned. So with that, that's all the comments that I would have. Are there any others? Okay, hearing none. Now we will move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Barber?
My report tonight begins with an update on our conversations with DOT. Bobby and I went to Chamblee February 14th to meet with our district 7 engineers for the first time, so that's the Douglas side of the city. We had conversations about the interchange at Liberty, the top of the ramp there coming up from 78, the other end on Punkintown, and things related to that, traffic lights and roundabouts and whatever. We talked a little bit about the way that we interact with them, because we have 2 different districts since we're in 2 different counties, and those counties happen to be in 2 different GDOT districts. So, for instance, the stretch of road that we call Liberty and Mirror Lake Boulevard in Punkintown crosses that line. So what we do with that will require some coordination between the 2 offices. The North Loop construction funding, which we were originally told had been moved back to 2027, has only been mildly adjusted to 2024. So that still requires some work for us to get that, back up to 2019 or 2020. You've noticed that the intersection improvements out on Highway 61 and Hickory Level are underway. They've cut the southbound left turn lane, and they're doing the northbound left turn lane, and then they'll be putting in some pedestrian islands. I have the District 6 traffic engineer coming out here tomorrow. So he's the Carroll side, that's the Cartersville office. So we'll be talking about some of these issues like the 61 Punkintown and 101 Rockmart and some of those other hot spots. We had a meeting with the representative from Norfolk Southern on February the 9th that was put together by State Representative Collins. It was an unusual meeting in that we had both Norfolk Southern and GDOT here at the same time, and we sat and talked for a while, and then we got in the van and rode around and showed them some of the stuff, because those guys have talked about some of that with us on the phone, but had not actually walked those either railroad crossings or whatever. So we did that together. Then they went to Temple and had another meeting like that with some of the elected officials and staff in Temple. We've worked a little bit on the relocation of City Hall since we talked last. If you've been over there, and you probably haven't had a reason to, but we've removed a lot of the landscaping and installed some sod. We're getting ready to put in a dumpster pad and move that dumpster out of the parking lot where it must have sat for the last 20 years or something. And there's an item on here to talk about Community Square Boulevard. The maintenance of the Pine Mountain train is finally underway, so Nick and Connor are working on that. We have an item working through the process to bring to you for water and sewer. The first one that you're going to see is at the next meeting. We're going to bring to you an engineering contract for consideration that would allow us to improve the water treatment plant, which was our first priority. If you noticed in your email late this afternoon, I sent you some information on our water and sewer system, so I encourage you to take a look at that, and I'd like to talk with y'all about that the next time we have an opportunity. In May or June, we hope to bring a sewer-related engineering contract, and while all that's going on, the company that you hired prior to my arrival, Smart Water Analytics, has been working with Pete on water pressure and the hydrological model of the system and trying to figure out what to do at Liberty Pool. So that will be coming back to you with some construction-related components here pretty soon. HEH has been back. If you've noticed out on South Carroll that we've made some adjustments to the transitions on both sides of the bridge on South Carroll. So the next piece of their work will be the driveway aprons that we identified as problems, and then striping. C.W. Matthews, who's doing this year's road work, delivered their equipment on Saturday, but were unable to work due to the rain yesterday. So we met with them this morning, went through the project list, and they're ready to go. They could be done, if they had like sunny weather every day, probably in 3 weeks, but more realistically, it'll be the middle of April probably until they're finished with all the actual surface work. And then 15 days, and as each of those components dry 15 days, they'll do striping. So hopefully by the end of April, that work will be done. Pete and I met with the Carroll Water Authority on February the 8th. We have asked them to propose to us a water purchase agreement that is based on a formula that uses their cost of production as opposed to just an arbitrary, CPI or, we raise it 25% a year kind of thing. We haven't seen anything back from them yet, and we have not gotten a response to our request for a capacity purchase, which we probably made in October or November or sometime. So we're waiting to hear on that. And then I've attended several meetings that I thought were worth noting. We had a leadership luncheon February the 14th with Loy Howard from Tanner as the speaker. Very well attended, a lot of energy in the room, got great feedback from the people that attended, very appreciative. Those luncheons are going to be held in the even months, I think, April, June, August, October. Where's Chris? Is that right, Chris? So we've got several of those coming up. I encourage y'all to go to those. Those are great opportunities to interact with some of the most engaged people, I think, not just in Villa Rica, but in the community. So Carroll County had maybe, a half a dozen of their management folks here. It's a good opportunity to interact with folks outside of, I think, the people that you normally see. We had a volunteer recognition banquet the following evening that was very well attended, good positive feedback on that also. Council member Ann Husband, Marchman, and I attended the Three Rivers board meeting February 22nd. That was a eye-opening experience, let me tell you. And then we had the Carroll Chambers Star Student Banquet last week, a breakfast. Some very, very sharp young people. So we've got a school system that's producing kids that are excelling on the standard testing, highly involved in their school athletically, in clubs, leadership positions in the community, going to pretty serious schools. I mean, there's a lot to be proud of when you look at it. I believe 9 high schools that, if I remember, that were represented in the county. So that was a good experience, and I had never heard of Oak Mountain Academy since I'd been here. So I learned something brand new that I'd not been exposed to. That's it.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we have reached the public comments portion of our meeting. Anyone wishing to give public comment, please do so at this time. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Louise Dobbs, and this is my very first council meeting. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have questions. But we own property on Harper Street, which is in the city limits of Villa Rica, but we live in the county off of Harlan Lane Road. But we just recently found out that we have to pay money for trash pickup and curbside something that they charge for. The property is vacant, but we only have water turned on so we can work on the property to get it back rented out. I'm just wanting to find out why we have to pay for, we're not using the bins or anything. Why do we have to pay that additional money for what we're not using? Or what is not being used?
We don't respond in public comment, but someone from staff, the city manager, if you would leave your name and a number,
My name.
an address, and
Okay.
maybe an email address, that would be great.
Okay. And one more question.
Okay?
Since we live in the, outside the city limits, who is our mayor? And who do we go to for concerns? Because when I thought we could vote for the mayor of Villa Rica since we live in Villa Rica and we live in Carroll County, but I found out when we went to go vote that we couldn't vote. And I just don't think that that's fair. Where do we go? Who is our mayor? We don't have one?
I'll be glad to answer that one. If you live in the county, if you're not in the city limits, then you don't have a mayor. Your council person, your commission person in charge of that area is Vicki Anderson. And she's your commissioner for District 2
Okay.
for Carroll County.
Temporarily. She's not running again.
So please, if you can leave your information, staff will get back with you on your first question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Come back again.
All right.
Anybody else?
If you're here for the whole meeting, I can explain the county commission again of how it works for the whole county.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Kraft. I live at 2406 Ridge Lake Drive. I've got a quote here that I'm going to start off with, which said, "One of the issues that I heard repeatedly is that Villa Rica is not business friendly. All too often we have relied on outside consultants to make decisions for us." Our mayor said this in the January speech at the city council meeting back in January. In Ken Denny's Times Georgia article on February the 15th, Villa Rica approved the city manager's request to hire an outside consultant to provide an overview of all the projects being done by city staffers, freeing them to focus on the minute details that will carry those projects to completion. It was quoted that he said, "I can't wrap my head around everything we're trying to do. It's overwhelming, the scope of it. Some sort of oversight was needed to prevent needless and potentially costly mistakes." The council then approved the cost, which was $12,500 for this. Being that I'm a big fan of oversight, under City Ordinance 2.2.080, competitive sealed bidding is preferred for services greater than $10,000. It was not mentioned in the article that the competitive bids took place, so I'm issuing an open records request to view the bids submitted at City Hall. At this time, I'm not requesting copies to be made, just to schedule a time to view the bids that were submitted. I too would like to prevent needless costly mistakes. But I do agree outside agencies are needed for Villa Rica. And I welcome the local press, just like they covered that story, to cover the following stories. When I did another open records request, it produced fruit for me, because when my identity theft was not investigated properly, and I asked for a GBI investigation, which was denied by City Council, the local district attorney's office is now still currently investigating it. When we received a letter that our water quality was not good and was not tested for years, I did another open records request and also filed a complaint with the EPA, which verified that the water was not tested for 9 years for radionuclides and also for 1 year for inorganic material. I did not receive a reply. I did receive records from the open records request, but I did not receive a reply from anyone from the city on my comments, so therefore I turned that information over to the health department, and I'll be waiting on that. Just heard we're fixing the train at the shelters, or at the Pine Mountain thing, and but it was mentioned in a couple of meetings, the concern for the farm animals and the conditions that were at Pine Mountain. I took pictures of the shelters, so-called shelters, went up there myself on a rainy day to see if the animals were being tended to. So based on my whatever you want to say, record with the city, I decided to turn that information over to another outside agency called PETA. And I'll be awaiting for that. Just recently, I read Leslie McPherson's comments about Butterball's Visitor Center, where she mentioned that the prior city manager performed a level 1 and level 2 soil test.
So you have 1 minute.
You got it. Being a fan of oversight, I'm submitting my second open records request to view both the level 1 and level 2 soil tests and any other environmental tests performed on that property, and I can view those at the same time as the other. I attended an appreciation dinner for volunteers at the city, and it was a very good event, but I noticed that the longest running joke at the event was the high turnover of employees, which I thought was kind of odd. There was a turnover issue, but yet no raises were given to employees. So here's a freebie from me. I've mentioned this in prior meetings, to deed the 74 acres that you bought near the bypass.
So your 3 minutes are up. If you'll be wrapping up, please.
Yep, it's 2 sentences. Deed the 74 acres that you bought with the taxpayer money, and my authority, which already voted on that property, would issue $500,000 back.
Thank you,
to
sir.
the
Your
city.
time is up.
And don't spend $600,000 on a welcome center. That's $1.1 million that you can give back to your employees. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. We will close the public comments portion of the meeting. We are at the consent agenda portion of the meeting. And for those in the audience, the consent agenda is a single item that encompasses all things the City Council would normally approve with little comment. Each of these items was discussed at the Thursday, March the 1st, 2018 council work session, and it was the unanimous consensus of the governing body to place the following items on the consent agenda. One of the things that we mentioned was that we were going to start calling these out just so we make sure we know what we're talking about. So I'll read these out, and if the council, these are already placed on the consent agenda, but just so everybody understands what we're talking about. First item is Bank of Ozarks. It's a security agreement and custodial services agreement. Item number 2 is a four-wheel trailhead, Department of Transportation supplemental agreement, PI 0010457. Item number 3 is July 3rd fireworks display contractor recommendation. Item number 4 is July 3rd fireworks entertainment, and that's going to be the Departure Band, which if you came to our Nugget Drop, it's a Journey tribute band. Item number 5 is emergency purchase over $10,000, and it's for the emergency replacement of a variable frequency drive at the wastewater treatment plant. And item number 6 is a discussion of railroad fines, and the situation there, Tom, correct me on this one, the way it was imposed, the $1,000 fine applied to everyone, including folks that were just crossing. So this was a clarification on that to show that the $1,000 fine was confined to trucks that were illegally crossing. Is that correct, Chief? Thank you, sir. All right. Do I hear a motion we approve?
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Tab A, governing body. Ladies and gentlemen, you have had a chance, hopefully, to look at the minutes of the January the 18th, 2018 meeting and the February the 6th, 2018 meeting. Are there any changes to those meeting minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion we approve.
So moved. Second.
And that's for both of them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Motion and second to approve the minutes of both meetings. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous. Item number 2, pet event at the mill. I believe Councilmember McPherson is going to.
Val Runyon, who had sent the letter, could not be here. She's out of town, and she asked Miss Singletary to present for her. a little bit about the event they want to have.
Okay. First off, thank you for listening. And I noticed you said 3 minutes. I just want to make sure that I just have enough time to answer any questions.
That's for public comment. You're,
The pet event, what we're asking for is June 9th to be held at the mill. First off, my name is Deborah Singletary, and I'm with Georgia Animal Welfare Advocates. I've had my group about 6 years, and what we do is we work with probably about 20 different animal controls and shelters. We work with veterinarians, we work with rescues, and we try to help people that need vetting, that can't afford it, and things like that. And also, we help the shelters with getting animals that are on death row and getting them off of death row into rescues and vetted and so forth. What this event is going to be for is to educate and inform Villaricans on what's available to them resource-wise and things like that. Doc Burnett is going to be offering discount packages to people for vetting, and that will include rabies, which you know is required by law, spay and neuter, which we are huge advocates of spay and neuter so that we can help tone down the over pet population. And like I said, it's general education. What the event will include will be, we will have vendors and area and local businesses, which by the way, we've had a huge interest in local businesses that want to participate. Pet Supplies Plus over in Carrollton wants to come out. Science Diet, which is a huge food manufacturer for animals that also, they supply food and stuff for most of your shelters and things like that. They all want to be involved. Like so we have area at-home, in-home direct sales businesses. We also have, like I said, local established businesses and so forth. The event would entail rescues as well as Carroll County Animal Control coming out for adoptions and things like that. That would be during the day for about a 3-hour period. Animals would be gone by around 6 or 7, and then we'd have an entertainment period that evening with bands and things like that. We have Wildlife, Thrive Wildlife is coming out to let people know that if you find a raccoon or an armadillo or something, the correct procedure and what you're supposed to do legally. So it's basically, it's not only just family entertainment, but it's a win-win. It's to bring businesses together, to bring something to the city, and for Villaricans to, like I say, realize that there are alternatives, that there is help out there, that we can help with spay and neuter, that we can help with microchipping your pets, which will help if your pets get lost and that kind of thing, finding the way back home, which in the long run keeps the population in the shelters down. And again, helping seniors, people that are on a low income budget, vet their animals and things like that. So that's the basics of what we want to do. And as far as setting up with the adoptions and things, I think Val, what she wants to do is, had talked about over in the parking area, I think she called it the southeast parking area, and over near where you do your nugget drop, so that way you don't have them in the grassy area and things like that. Everybody has to poop or scoop. As far as safety goes, people have to pre-register and prove that their animals have been vaccinated. They will have a tag that will be placed on their leash or collar so that you can show that they have shown that they do have paperwork. Animals that come from the shelter are always vaccinated. They don't bring them out into the public for adoption unless they are. So as far as safety and things like that go, we've pretty much put everything that we could think of into place that will work for that. We have vendors and anyone participating signing waivers to release any liability as far as the city goes, and anybody participating. They're going to poop or scoop. We have people that will be there to do that as well. So we pretty much, I think we have everything covered to make it a safe family event, something to educate residents and do something good in the process. And we're asking that you'll approve us to be able to do it at the mill. And of course, now we're having a pet contest, and we're doing, I don't know how many are pet owners, but we're doing a owner pet look-alike contest. So, you can bring your dog or your cat out, and we'll see if you look like them. But we also are going to ask you guys to be our judges, and help too. So you didn't know that, did you?
Well, it was offered in the letter. I can judge. I don't look like my dog, though. Thank goodness.
before we hear from staff on this, we have a celebrity in our midst, and I noticed him earlier, and I'd like to, Doc Burnett, would you please stand up? I want to point him out because a lot of people don't know this, but Doc has been our veterinarian on staff for the animals at the Pine Mountain Gold Museum since day one, and he does that free of charge and goes out and vaccinates those animals and checks them and makes sure they're taken care of. So thank you for that, for this community and for those animals out there. Thank you, sir.
Also, I'd like to add that with all the rescues and things that we do work with, Doc Burnett has actually helped my organization in the last year and a half vet and take care of over 200 animals. And so that's a pretty big thing too.
Did I hear you say that the only animals that would be at this event would be the rescue animals?
No. What I said was that we would have, we're going to try to get Carroll County to come out, and what they'll do is adoptions. We're going to have other rescues come out as well to do adoptions. We also have the opportunity to have, it's a petting zoo. We haven't given them the yay or nay because I want to get the yay or nay from you first, and the animals that they have are all rescued. So if you've never had the chance to hold a wallaby or a kangaroo, or pet a porcupine, you'd have that opportunity. So you guys can come out for that and bring your kids and grandkids, and that's something they said they've never done before. But that's an option that we do have. And then, like say, Thrive Wildlife would be there, and sometimes they do bring some with them. But again, that's up to the council whether or not you'd be okay with us having them there. And all of these have insurance and things that are in place, so that's not an issue either.
I think he wants to know about as far as people bringing their own pets, that sort of thing.
What they're going to do is do a pre-registration. So if you want to come out and participate in the contest that they're going to be holding, or if you want to come out with your pet, it's going to be publicized that you have to have proof of vaccinations. And unfortunately, if you come to the event and you don't have it, we will have to turn them away. And that, again, is just for the safety of the public.
So let me go back to what I said. So
Sure.
They'll either be rescue animals from some sort of rescue, or this Thrive Wildlife.
Right.
Or anybody who brings their own pet would have to bring some verification that it's been vaccinated or,
Right.
or
Right.
is up to date on its shot.
Right, exactly.
And then did you further say that they would be kept in the parking lot?
The rescue for adoptions and things like that, that will be in the parking lot area off of the grass and on the concrete. People bringing their own animals would be allowed to walk around, and they will actually be tagged. They have a tag system that will be on the leash or the collar of the animal, so that you'll be able to see that physically and know that we have checked it. But as far as the adoptions and things like that, that would be in a concreted area over in that area. And it's near where the nugget drop is, that whole area over there, to help with cleanup and things like that.
Are the people that bring their pets responsible for cleaning up after their pets?
Yes, but we also have people that would be there just in case.
We had an event several years ago when we first purchased V-Plex. It was a similar event, and one of the stations was a grooming area. And being the recreation director at the time, we allowed it. It was a new event. It was a new park. Brought a lot of folks to Villa Rica. But afterwards, about a week later, we had a baseball tournament on that same field, and it was windy the day of the grooming event, so the hair was everywhere on the infield. And as you might expect, myself and the staff caught a lot of heat from that. Is there going to be a grooming table or anything like that?
No,
Or
the only thing that we will have is just somebody that represents a grooming business, but no grooming on site at all. And we had an event back in September at the VFW complex. It was the Paws and Claws event. It's a festival, and I do it every year. And Carroll County came out for that, and we did some rabies, and we microchipped over 110 animals, and we were able to put out a lot of information. And so I just bring that up because when we were done, you didn't know we'd been there. So we make sure that all of that is taken care of. We want to leave it the way we find it.
any other questions from council, of staff? Mr. Pike? Mr. Barber?
I mean, I do want to hear from staff because I want to ask if staff has a recommendation.
That was a nice smile, though, Chris.
Appreciate it.
Nice try. Put him on the spot.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I've been on the earth long enough to know when you're in a no-win situation. And when to keep your mouth closed. Now, staff doesn't have we have a policy. Obviously, whenever we deviate from that policy, that's not a staff decision. That's elected officials' decision. This particular event does not fall in the guidelines with our policy that we use to operate the Mill Amphitheater. We sent that policy to you all, but definitely the decision is in the hands of the elected body to decide whether or not this event happens.
Just to clarify, it's not specifically so much about an event as to whether we're going to allow dogs at our Mill Amphitheater. Our regulations don't allow them to come to concerts and things like that. I think there's a real differentiation between having pets there at concerts and New Year's and Halloween candy events for kids, having pets then, and having a separate event with just dogs on a Saturday where there'll be no city event held there for a period of days afterwards. Also, I read over the park rules and regulations that we have for the mill. The one that supposedly this would be not necessarily violating, but we'd have to make an exception for. Let me read it to you. The following are not permitted at the Mill Amphitheater grounds: dogs, skateboards, possession of and/or use of alcohol or controlled substance, glass containers, or weapons. I will say that we have made exceptions a number of times for alcohol with like a beer and wine event for certain concerts. So we do make exceptions for some things. It's just a matter of whether we choose to do so or not. And wine, and I think it was beer, was one of those for a few concerts.
Well, I think those events come before the council to be voted on, just like this event's coming before the council to be voted on. There's no differentiation. I mean, it's the same thing. The policy is no beer or wine, so if someone has an event there that has those, then it has to come before the council for approval or denial.
Yeah, I only wanted to clarify because it had been brought up that it went against the policy, and I wanted to mention that we also didn't go but made an exception to the policy in those cases.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's really all I had.
Can I ask a question? If your concern is your biggest concern with dogs around where the amphitheater and things like that is that where your major concern lies?
I think my concern is them being in the grassy area. So when you talked about them being in a parking lot, I thought, I have pets. I love pets, but we do a lot of things at that amphitheater, and my little boy has significant allergies to pet danders, almost all of them really, and he plays out there, and I don't particularly like it, but sometimes I see him rolling around out there, and I just would prefer that families be able to go out there and not have that kind of issue, aside from whether you clean up after the animals or whether you don't. But you also mentioned that there were some other events that would be there that you would ask us if we would approve, such as the petting the porcupine or whatever you said. But I have my packet doesn't include options for us to say yes to some things and no to some things. It looks like if we say yes tonight, it becomes whatever you do down there.
No, what I'm asking is, I think the event is important. I think this is something that we can use. I think it's something to benefit the community. So I think we could work around whatever we need to work around to make the event happen.
Any other questions of the applicant? We don't normally take public comment. It's that is discussions about the contract, whether we're going to issue that or not. So, any other questions of the applicant? If not, council discussion, any further? Okay, guess we'll call the question.
Might
I don't think we have a motion. Make one up here. I'd make a motion that we make an allowance to have this event there and allow this pet event that will probably bring a lot of people to downtown and educate a number of citizens in Villa Rica and maybe from outside Villa Rica how to better care for their animals.
Have a motion to approve the event as proposed. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a proper second to approve the event as proposed. Discussion? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion fails.
Now, this is not to say that Dr. Burnett cannot have this situation at his business, which would be okay.
Moving on to item number 3, city manager evaluation. We talked about this on Thursday. I just want to say for the record that I think our city manager is doing a tremendous job here. He has literally walked into the fire and has grasped our problems along with our staff and is moving things forward. Yes, we're still in a big ocean, and yes, we still have a long way to go to get to the bank, but I think we have a roadmap now how to get to the bank. And I'm not sure we always had that, but I made the comment to Tom today, and a lot of our staff members are in this room right now, that in my 14 years plus of working with the city, I can say that the staff that we have right now in place is doing a tremendous job, and they're all working well as a team, and I think that's reflective of the managers that report to Tom, and certainly to Tom. So that's my unsolicited public evaluation of our city manager, who has been here now for 6 years, 8 months. And so he's a couple of months past the evaluation. One of the things that this council was very proactive about doing is saying that, you know, we want to do this right, and we're going to evaluate our city manager and let him know the things that he's doing that are good, and let him know the things that he's doing that are not so good, and some suggested areas of improvement if we see those. So I think that's something that our previous city managers, quite frankly, could have used, not placing blame on any one particular city manager. I think our elected officials share some of that responsibility. So I commend this council for those actions. And along those lines, I know Council Member McDougal had come up with an evaluation sometime back, and I've looked at it. I like it. It's very thorough, very much to the point. Council Member Best Thursday asked that our Human Resource Director look at possibly coming up with one more in line with the city employees evaluation. And so I would just encourage this council to look at both of those documents and determine which one we're going to use, and then move forward with making sure that we evaluate Mr. Barber. So any other comments along those lines?
Has Human Resources come up with a document?
She has.
I don't think I've seen it.
Is that just going to get sent to us, or what's the plan?
Because I don't see it in my packet.
It's not. Stephanie's making her way forward.
Can't look at it if I don't have it.
I'm in the process of, I have queried my counterparts at other cities and counties, and they are in the process of sending me some examples. So we can incorporate those with what Mr. Councilman McDougal has come up with and what we use as our evaluations for our exempt employees here at the city.
Do you have any idea when that might be available?
Give me 2 weeks.
I would just say I think we need to move on this fairly quickly. This is overdue. It's long overdue. Not to say that we haven't been busy with a lot of things, because we have, but this was a part of his contract. He's entitled to this review, and I want to see us do it. And I'm not really directing that at you, but as this body, we have one that we could look at, that maybe some here might be interested in moving forward with. If you want to wait 2 weeks and take a look at it, I don't mind. This is just about doing what we committed to doing up front
Right.
when we hired Mr. Barber.
Absolutely.
Great.
Maybe you can tell them we're being a real pain in the neck, and that if they'll just send it to us, like via
I
email.
received about 5 this afternoon.
Well, see,
So-
maybe we don't have to get them all. Just pick out the best ones, and let's look at those this week, and blame
There's-
it all on us. You know, just-
There are some that are weak, and there are some that are stronger than others, so.
Okay, well, can we kind of have her vet those and give us the best out of them, or do y'all want to look at everything?
I'm not sure that giving individual evaluations from cities is the right thing to do. We pay her an amount of money to make these decisions, to take one from this city, one from this city, one from this city that she chooses to put together an evaluation for our city manager, and it may not fit where we are. It may be a larger city or whatever, but she's got a good enough sense to her to evaluate what is right for this city and to evaluate it that way.
I'd be fine with that.
It's not going to be the whole thing, I wouldn't think.
No.
Yeah.
And just for your information, in the past, what I've looked through some files of former city managers is we use the same evaluation tool that we used for all of the employees, both exempt and non-exempt. So, but I don't think that actually fits what we need at this point.
It's a big difference between evaluating the city manager. Gil, I liked yours. I looked all through it. Now, there was one section that I felt would be hard for us to answer the question. It was under personnel management. There were a few questions I saw in there that I found would be hard for me to tell whether he's doing that with, you know, whether those employees and those things are carrying out that way, unless I lived at City Hall. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good, you know, form to use.
I would echo Councilmember McDougal's, whatever form we use, we need to move forward with it and not talk about it for the next 2 or 3 months. So I would like to see, if it's not unreasonable, Stephanie, I would like to see you send those to the council so we can look at that and you know, I'll individually poll the council and we'll see if we can do that. But whatever we use, I think we owe it to our city manager and we owe it to ourselves and our city to make sure that's done in an efficient and prompt manner. So, further comments? Okay. Item number 4 is a discussion of the road to the post office and businesses. And let me give you a little background on that for those of you that don't know. Of the 7 out of 10 of the complaints that I get on a daily basis are about the road that that goes beside City Hall that you access the post office, and I think it's Extreme Fitness back in the back there, and Dr. Bruce Camp's office. That road was constructed on Dr. Camp's property many years ago, before there was a city road, because he needed access to his property where he built his dentist's office. It was built out of concrete. A train.
But it's moving.
I said this last Thursday. When I was a kid, I loved trains. I don't love trains anymore.
You still love them.
Okay. The road was constructed out of concrete and was not reinforced with rebar as per GDOT standards, and I wouldn't expect a private citizen to construct their private driveway according to GDOT standards. So with that said, that road is now in disrepair and has been for many years, so we can't do anything, we being the city, can't do anything about it because it's on private property. So we've been working through that situation with Dr. Kemp, and I had conversations with him as late as this past Saturday, and he has agreed to donate that property to the city. Now, that's the good part. The bad part is, as soon as it becomes city property, guess what happens?
We have
to fix it. So there will be a cost involved in that. Tom is working through that process now, and we would hope that we would have that road repaired as soon as possible. We all realize that it's very bad. Some people have had some problems with their cars being damaged and stuff like that. So I would just like to, for the council to consider this, and David, you steer us in the right direction on this.
Yeah, anytime you accept a donation of property for road purposes, there has to be a dedication, which Dr. Camp will have to sign off on a deed transferring that right-of-way to us. The second component is the acceptance of the dedication of the road. I don't know of any reason why you cannot, if you choose to go ahead and vote to accept the dedication if it's tendered to us, or you can wait till the next meeting to accept it after he has formally signed the deed to us.
So does the federal post office not have any responsibility all in it, because they use it?
But the post office, they don't own that property, they lease it.
Yeah, they're a tenant.
My concern here is that this is the first time I've seen this. It didn't come up in the work session Thursday. And I know that road has been repaired multiple times since I've lived here, which is since I've been a toddler. And it's costly. It's very costly. And even the backup information here says it's $100,000. I just think that there would have been more discussion about this before it just showed up here tonight. And city manager gave me a couple of a little bit of information right before the meeting started that this would be paid for out of LMIG funds, but that's a pretty expensive cost for us to take on, and I'd like to know the reasons that it would benefit the city taxpayers of Villa Rica to do that, besides just the fact that the road would be smooth.
You don't have to vote on it tonight. There's no requirement of that. One other factor that I'm aware of that I think it would be beneficial at some point is that my understanding is that is going to help us have access to the proposed new city hall that we don't have.
Has Dr. Camp agreed to let us put a cut through between his office?
I don't know.
We also haven't taken any action to put a city hall back there.
Not yet.
And that all came up as part of another project that lingered around for several months that ended up fizzling out.
Well, in a sense, we rejected it. If we're talking about the same Project Roll.
Well, we did, but eventually they just backed out on their own for other reasons. But that's a side note. I mean,
It's my understanding that he has repaired this over the years. I don't know how many times or anything like that, but what I'm wondering is, there's something under the surface. I mean, if he's repaired it and it does that again, and he's repaired it and it does that again.
Here's the problem, since I'm in the asphalt business, I can answer that question. Concrete, unless it has rebar in it, is not structurally sound, and consider a piece of peanut brittle. That's what you have with concrete. When GDOT builds interstates, if you've watched that process, that road is as many as 12 to 16 inches thick with rebar in it. The only way to fix this road is not to repair it, is to remove the asphalt, this concrete, make sure the base is right, put a correct amount of base, and then put asphalt on top of that. You can't repair the concrete. What has made the concrete worse is that any time, and this applies to concrete or asphalt, but in this case, as soon as you break the concrete and water gets below that, then you have this action with the concrete, and it begins to move back and forth, and that's why the road looks like it does now. So as long as water gets underneath concrete or asphalt, there's going to be damage to it down the road. So the only way to fix this, in my opinion, is to remove the concrete, to put a base of gravel down, and then put asphalt back.
I agree with Councilman McGonigal. If we need a proper presentation of what they're going to do, and also what the cost is going to be for the city.
So can I make a motion that we table this and come back and revisit it with that additional
With
information?
the staff doing a presentation.
Yeah, and since it didn't get vetted in a work session, it was newly added, it didn't give us the amount of time we needed to evaluate it.
but let me also I'd also say, for me, consider the benefit to the city. If we're going to take this road and repair it, and it needs to be repaired, but right now it leads to private businesses and a post office, which are not, it's not part of it's not a city responsibility, these private businesses and the post office. I go to that post office every day. But I think as part of this, if we were in fact going to use that old library for a city hall, and we've all discussed that even that would be temporary, I see a reason for us to do this. But if we don't need to get back there as part of the city, I don't know why we do it. But I would just say consider that as part of whatever presentation we do.
I'm not in agreement with you on that one, because I think the post office is used by just about everybody in the city, and I think that's a benefit. We need to supply
All
the-
our citizens are
the
fighting
citizens.
over it.
Yeah, we need to fix them a way to get to the post office.
And that's a very good point, Councilman McDougal, but I would like to point out that the city has set precedent here. We have topped roads and subdivisions that were not city-used roads. We've spent taxpayer money to top subdivisions that were supposed to be topped by developers many years ago. So,
But I would say we shouldn't have.
okay. So we will place it on the next agenda, and Tom, can you have us a cost to repair that?
Cost and a plan, yeah, so we'll know what we're gonna do and what it's gonna cost us. Okay.
Yeah, do I hear a motion to table?
I make a motion that we table.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to table this to the April meeting. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous. Item number 5, discussion on our charter. Mr. Mecklin?
Yes, I finally did receive back the version that was edited by the Legislative Council last Friday, and I tried to provide it to you last Friday. I hope you got it then. If not, I think you all have indicated to me that you have received it now and have had an opportunity to review it. I have looked through it. They made some changes to it, most of which was stylistic changes and to put it in the format that they like to have bills introduced in. The changes that were made, which I provided you with a comparison version between our last version and what they did. I don't want to say that there were no substantive changes, because there were some, but I didn't see any significant changes that were made. Most of the changes were related to, we had a couple of sections where in our powers of our city, we had 3 separate sections, all that said essentially the same thing about being able to control building and codes and those type of things. And they condensed all those 3 powers into 1 power that said the same thing. That was one major one. You've all had a chance to read through it. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer it. Where we are on it right now is Representative Collins has told me he's ready to drop it in the hopper, which is the magic words for the legislature, so long as we don't tell him not to. And I wanted to give this opportunity tonight for the council. If you had enough misgivings about their edited version of this to say don't do it, that we have that opportunity. But otherwise, I think your earlier action to move forward with it, they're going to act on unless we tell them not to.
Discussion?
I would say I reviewed the both versions that you sent and had to go to the very last page to figure out the key for how this whole thing was done.
Right.
So it took me a while to figure out double underlined and in purple is this thing, and so ultimately I ended up going back to the finalized version without all that mess, because I said all that to say this: I did review it. I did not find substantial changes, anything that I objected to. So if we need to move on this tonight, I would be in favor of doing that. If we have time and others want to take a look at it, I have no problem with that either.
I'm good. I looked through it, and it was mainly minor changes, nothing that really changed what we wanted.
So this is gonna continue on unless we object to it.
Well, it will. Again, the way that it's put to me, unless you tell me not to introduce it, I'm going to. I think it would be helpful if we could go ahead and at least get an assent on the record that y'all are okay with it being introduced hopefully tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we probably need to make a we need to approve this because there were changes to it, the one that was approved by council. That's my opinion.
Make a motion to accept the charter
Second.
And
as presented.
With changes as
With
proposed
changes
by
as
legislative council.
mentioned, yes.
And these are changes drafted by the legislative council.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? If not, all in favor? We have voted on the charter again.
Drop.
Hopefully.
Okay. Tab B, Finance. Sarah?
First I couldn't get into that, then I couldn't find the packet. I found the agenda.
Yeah. Mr. Pike, you lost your designation again.
It was under download today. The download.
Yeah, down, and then you get packet downloads over here.
Good evening, council people. We have the January 2018 financial update. As I mentioned last week, with the new year, I wanted to show something different format, and highlight some different things, which will hopefully be more helpful and more interesting. Going on to the next slide, first up is cash. Comparing this past January to last January of 2017, our total cash in the bank with all of our accounts, we have about 20 of them, was $9.1 million. At this time last year, it was just over $7 million. Those next three, the top three lines in the next section, the general fund, water sewer fund, and the sanitation solid waste fund, those are actually part of our pool. So our software actually tracks receipts that come in, checks that go out, which fund they're attributed to. So if you see a negative, it doesn't mean a negative in the bank, just in our books saying that fund owes other funds money. The general fund, we had $7.1 million at the end of this January compared to last year's $6 million. The water sewer fund, we did have $838,000. So this was before we made our bond payments this past week. And last year we had a negative $395,000 in the bank. Sanitation and solid waste, we still have a negative cash position there, negative $423,000, which is actually worse than where we were last year at negative $257,000. Those next three items, those are our SPLOST bank accounts. These are actual separate bank accounts. They are not part of our pool. We still have money in our 08 SPLOST. We have $634,000. Our new 2015 Carroll SPLOST shows $403,000, and then our newest, our Douglas County SPLOST, we have almost $650,000 at the end of January. That one we just started receiving, I believe, in November of 17. Moving on.
No better.
While that's pausing, can I ask something real quick about the solid waste?
Yes.
We had talked about the fact that they go up and down the streets, picking up everything. Are we looking to make that where they either use an app and say they need a pickup, or they call in and get on a list? Or are we in the, because it's in worse position than it was last year. We're trying to adjust that. We've adjusted the rates.
Right.
What's our other option?
We have looked at some apps. At this point, the app is going to be a bigger undertaking because we think it would be more than just the pickup. We would want to incorporate complaints or notifications that people put into the city about potholes and things.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a bigger undertaking. It would be it might take over our website and our app, a City of Villa Rica app. So we put that behind on the back burner for the moment because we would have to consider other options with it. It wouldn't just be for sanitation, solid waste pickup. But yes, part of this also is in this first year of our 3-year financial health budget plan, I guess. We did realign our expenses to where they should be. So what we discovered going through this budget process was that some of the personnel that help with solid waste and things were actually in the general fund as part of the streets department, but really they're part of our solid waste pickup. So while it looks worse right off the bat, it's because so far in 2018 we've all actually paid more. We've realigned our expenses so we can actually see what it costs us. So the 2018 budget.
They were getting paid in a different department, so it's gotten moved over there.
So that's part of it. But our 3-year plan will hopefully address that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is our self-funded insurance update, comparing last year's United Healthcare payments to this year's self-funded payments. You can see the first 4 months of our self-funded insurance compared to last year. So far, we've saved $151,000 compared to last year. Now, I would say actual savings is greater because this is just showing what we paid last year to United Healthcare, whereas this year our true savings is what I'm putting in the bank and what's left after the claims are paid. So each payroll I moved $62,000 to $64,000. That's employee contributions and employer contributions. So that's accumulating, and then every week the claims are drawn out from what's actually spent.
Let me do some patting on the back. I did Thursday night, so on Thursday afternoon. This is one of the very big bright spots, I think, in my administration so far, and I commend this council for the insight, and especially our staff. And again, Tom Barber and Stephanie and Sarah and everybody else that has something to do. For folks, for y'all that may not know, we became self-funded as far as our medical insurance is concerned this year. And when we first heard of it, I think we all went, oh, I mean, this is a bad idea. Why is nobody else doing it if it's such a great idea? But basically what it does is provide medical insurance for all our employees. And there are stop-loss policies in here so that if there's a catastrophic, God forbid, there's something that happens to somebody and it costs a lot of money, there's a policy that picks that up so that the city doesn't incur that huge cost and all our money's gone all at one time. The benefits in this are far and wide. The $151,571 is an important number, especially when you realize that $151,571 in the past, if that money had been saved, that money would have gone to United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or whoever our insurance carrier was. Whereas now, since we're self-funded, that money goes back into the city, into this city. So that's savings that we can actually say that we've incurred. And here's the better part of it. I kept waiting for the employees side of it, the people to call and say, this is awful, it costs more money, but it doesn't. I know there have been some bumps and things, and staff has worked through those. Stephanie, you get the majority of those, and thank you for that. But by and large, the employees like the insurance. They're actually saving money. I've had council members and employees, and some of them are shaking their heads yes back there, that, we're buying our medicines now. We can go to Canada and get some of those, and it's cheaper to get it there than it is through America. So we have taken a bold step forward, I think, in this city, and Tom can speak to it a lot better, and Wendell, if he were here, would do that. But I just commend the council and everybody for taking a bold step that apparently is going to result in some savings to the city. And not only that, but it's good insurance for our employees. So Sarah's too modest to say all that, so I was going to say it.
It's going to get better.
All right, next slide is growth. I did put the comparison in there compared to last year. So in January 2018, we had new residential construction, 36 permits, amounting to $19,000 compared to last year we had 1 in the same time frame. And corresponding with that, we had water taps, 34 water taps, 34 sewer taps, and you can see the dollar amounts there. We did have a few commercial building permits, but they were either remodels or they weren't new construction. I want to show you all new construction, so you can see what a difference 1 year makes. Going on to the next slide. So every month I'll be bringing y'all a income statement for our 2 business enterprise funds, the water, sewer, and the sanitation solid waste. First up is water and sewer. You can see the revenue up top, water and sewer split. You can see, well, I made a note up at the top that so when we read meters in January, the meters hadn't been read since mid-December or so. So when we're billing people in January, part of that water usage was in December. So I had to actually do a journal entry and move that revenue back into last year. So next month will look better. I had to move $263,000 in revenue back to the prior month. So that's part of why we see a big loss. Also, you see the water and sewer, and distribution collection expenses split out, so you can see it by department. And then you see our debt expense. That's 1/9 of our debt expense since we're on a 9-month calendar, 9-month fiscal year. And then depreciation. That's 1 month's worth of depreciation for all of our equipment, buildings, and plants. So in January, we showed a loss of $185,000 compared to a loss last January of $300,000.
That's important.
Yeah.
Underline, underscore, highlight. Our enterprise fund has been losing money for many years. And we have asked the citizens to help defray the cost of that and come back. We're not trying to make money. We're trying to break even at this point, which we've been losing money for many years. But if you look at that number, you can see the benefits of actually moving in the right direction. In this January 31st of 2017, we had, in our enterprise fund, we had a net loss of $300,407. This year, January 31st, 2018, we had a net loss of $185,387. So we've already reduced our loss by 40% in just 1 year. So
That's interesting, because in February is when it went into effect.
Yep.
This was January.
All right. Next, sanitation and solid waste. This is same situation. We're billing for part of the December trash pickup, so I had to back out $42,000 and put that back into December. But it's done in both months, so it's a true comparison. You see our sanitation expense there, $53,000. That's our payment to Waste Industries, and then solid waste expense. So that's the cost of our personnel and our tipping fees for our pickup, the solid waste pickup, and then depreciation for trucks and things. So we had a net loss of $70,000 this month compared to last year, at $52,000. Again, we had, I think, 4 employees in 2017 in this fund. What we discovered where we needed to actually add 3 more. So we took 3 employees out of the general fund and put them here. So although it is a greater loss, I'm interested to see how February looks with the rate increases. So. Next slide. So I added to this since we talked last week. Our previously qualified senior discounted customers were 670 of them. We have received, as of 2 weeks ago, 219 applications total. Of those, 189 qualified. So that's 28% that qualified from our previously discounted customers. Of the ones that were disqualified, 8 of them were because they hadn't filled out, hadn't turned in all their information. And then there was 22 that didn't qualify because their income was too high. So we looked at those. 13 of those 22 would qualify if we raised it to at least $30,000, and the other 9, their household income ranged from $32,000 to about $42,000. So you can see there we would make an impact if we did raise it. So our current income limit is $24,120, which is 2 times the poverty limit. So I asked there, do we want to raise it even to a flat $30,000? I think in the city of Atlanta, they have a flat number. So some entities use this flat number, others use this poverty factor. So the other option is 2.5 the poverty level, which would be $30,150.
discussion.
That would mean more people would be qualified for, if you raise it to the 30,
Yes.
then more people will be able to take advantage of this discount.
Yes. And I have no way of knowing how many, but we do believe it would make an impact.
We're still looking for 50% of the 670 people, correct?
If that's what y'all would like.
But why are we looking, how did 50% come up?
When they did the rate study, they suggested to us that it would.
We had no idea of knowing, since we don't track people's incomes.
Yeah, how did 50% become a number we wanted to hit?
We put it out of thin air.
That's not.
Yeah, when we were working with Raftellus, we had to tell them something because they were building the model. We said, we can't envision doing a low income discount and more than 50% of the people qualifying. So we said, use 50, that'll be safe. If we don't have that many to qualify, then we're okay. So my position with Sarah is that the 24 number that we recommended, the 2-time poverty, is just too low. As we've had people come in, if you change it to 30 or 36 or whatever you do to it, you're not just going to get the increase of this handful of people right here, because you'd have to think that some people read the material, knew that they were over 24 and didn't apply, who might be in this 24 to 30, 24 to 36 range, who will then come in. And you've also probably got people who read about it, hadn't gotten the bill yet, maybe hadn't really thought about it, who may get motivated later after they paid a few more of these higher bills and think, you know, I really would like to save that money. So I think we could maybe get over 30% into 35%, but to get over 40%, I think is going to really require us to make a big change.
I'm, just from talking to one of the previous employees that doesn't work for the city anymore but did work in the water department, and some of the things I used to see, I'm just wondering how much of the 670, when it also came to reapplying, said, well, gosh, we don't really have a senior in the household, or we can't claim grandma anymore, and it was fraudulent. And we know that was happening. We know, don't we?
We do know, but in
But I don't know how many.
February of, I believe, 2016, we did an audit, and so Ms. Shirley's
Did
not
that clean
a-
up?
I mean, no, I'm just saying, do what we have to do to benefit some of these people
Well, this
that
600
needs help, you know, and not worry about who and what. But if we can raise it to help some of these low-income people, I'm for it. You know.
I think we ought to do it in steps. I think we'll maybe take it to 30 and wait and see what happens.
I got a
Councilmember,
step for you. I'm saying 36,000, let's go.
Councilmember McDougal has waited patiently to speak. He's started the conversation 3 or 4 times now, so.
No. What I was going to say is that when we did the audit in 2016, we feel like we weeded out most of that fraud that the councilwoman is talking about. So this 670 is probably an actual number. Is that a fair statement?
I believe it's better than what they had in the past.
And well, probably better than in the past, I can tell you that. You all used the 50% number in the study with Raftella, so we sort of thought from the very beginning that we would try to reach that 50%. I think, and I said Thursday, that I would be comfortable. We talked about possibly waiting and looking at this again next month, but given this information, I think I would be okay with doing the 2.5 times poverty, which puts it at 30,150 right now, and then maybe we look at it again in a couple of months. Would that be? I mean, I would make that into a motion if we're ready to do that.
I'll just say this and then I'll be quiet.
We have a motion on the floor.
He hasn't put it in the motion yet. He
Well, I
said-
think he did.
Go ahead.
He just said he made
He
a
did.
motion.
He said he put it in. Wait a minute. Let's do this right. All right, we have a motion by Councilmember McDougal to raise the senior exemption to the 2.5 percentile number, which would be $30,150.
2.5 times poverty.
2.5 times the poverty rate. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Shirley second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Let me clarify. The effective
Okay.
date would be. You have a recommendation, Sarah? You're the one that does the billing.
I would say for bills
First billing in April.
yeah, for bills printed after April 1st.
April Fool's Day, okay.
I said
Bills
that.
printed after April 1st.
Okay, that is the motion.
And second.
Discussion?
And a
City
second.
Clerk, would you please read the motion back so everybody understands what they're voting on?
For bills printed.
After.
April 1st.
After April 1st.
This puts the
I
minimum.
have a motion and a proper second. Any further discussion?
Yes. It is the job of churches and community charities to assist people. We have given a discount for 2 times the poverty limit, but only for a certain segment, which means that if you have 4 children and you have a sick child and you also have a problem making these payments, you're not included because you're not the right age. You're not included, and yet you probably have even a higher bill because you have 3 or 4 kids. And so I just feel like we're getting a little bit out of our bounds in, we're already giving a senior discount, but nobody else gets it that needs charity, that might need it also. And there's people in a lot of situations that have just as hard a time paying their bill because of the situation they're in with their income. And I don't like us picking winners and losers. And that's what we do in a sense. We're picking who gets to win and who gets to lose with special treatment. And we're a household that did at one time benefit from the senior discount. That's it.
Further discussion? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor? All opposed? It's 4-1. Sarah, I would ask, or Tom, I would ask that we do the same sort of process that we do to advertise this. I will lean on y'all, and I think council will too, how you will advertise that we've changed that rate, so.
Thank you. Dollar limit. Turkish bath, got taken off.
This is our ordinance for better collection and administration of hotel motel tax. We've made 3 changes since last week. I handed y'all a red line version. I'll show you. Page 1. Last week there was a question about the Turkish bath. Our city attorney looked at that and didn't think it was relevant to us.
We didn't have any of those?
We don't have any, and I don't foresee any.
So that's been removed.
Well, the Turks are going to object.
Next is page 5. We removed paragraph G. It's about extension of time of filing. So when they wrap up a month, so at the end of February, they have 20 days to report to us. It's due the 20th of the following month. This paragraph would give them room for another extension. Didn't think that was necessary. We're already giving them 20 days, which is pretty standard for closing your month or closing your books. So we've taken that out. And then lastly, in paragraph H, so state code allows businesses, when they take in taxes, to keep part of that for themselves for cost of administration and the costs that they have in incurring that. But after up to $2,500, that rate would be 3%. They get to keep 3% of their first $2,500 that they would owe us. And then after that, anything above $2,500, instead of a 3% rate for themselves, it would be 0.5%. So that's the other change that we've made.
Okay, Sarah, you kind of skipped to the end of the book now. For those in the audience that don't know what we're talking about here, can you kind of give us an idea of what we're talking about?
Sure. In December, the council approved a GMA subcontractor, the Resource Professionals Group, TRPG, to audit our hotels and motels in the city. We have 8 locations. In August of last year, our hotel rate went from 5% to 8%. And the first couple months, we didn't feel like we were getting that full new tax rate. So I believe Tom started the process to bring these folks in, and I've done a similar audit in Texas. It's pretty common practice. So they come in, they have now sent letters to all the entities, and they have sent packets now too, showing them what they're going to do. So for the next year, they'll be reporting directly to TRPG, not to us. We'll take that back over after a year, but this will allow TRPG to audit the returns and the money that's being paid. They'll be looking at probably rate of occupancy. They'll be looking at exemptions. So if someone stays in a hotel, like an extended stay hotel, after 30 days, they don't have to pay hotel tax. They would be exempt. So the TRPG group will be looking at those sort of exemptions and things to make sure that we are collecting all the tax that's due to the city.
Is this something this group does? This is their business to do this?
Yes.
Has our city attorney looked it over?
I have. I looked over it and agree with the changes that were proposed.
The over 30 days is mainly to protect those people. They wouldn't get taxed, those people that are actually having to live in a motel, correct? And there's something else, there's another exemption. Oh, I believe, isn't there some sort of exemption for the people like their house burned down and they don't get that tax
Right.
either, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Sarah, do you have a proposed effective date?
I thought it would just be the day that you,
It'd be
Prove it.
effective immediately
They
upon
would.
passage and signature.
Passed and adopted on this blank.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the ordinance?
Yeah, I make a motion that we adopt the ordinance providing for better collection and administration of the hotel motel tax.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, discussion? Not all in favor? It is unanimous.
all right. Next is a request to update our utility billing deposit and fee amounts. They're not all changes, but I did put them all in the resolution for you so that you could approve all of them together. Just to let everyone know, in February of 2018, the council did approve writing off $95,000 in uncollectible customer receivables that dated back to 2015, excuse me. As we discussed then, the biggest impacts that we can have is not hiring a collection agency, but it's what we can do in-house. And we've started doing those things by changing to cycle billing. So now we have 4 areas that we bill monthly instead of just 1 due date. We have 4 due dates. That allows the staff to kind of spread out our work evenly, cash flow evenly, but it allows us to cut off, focus on making sure people are paying on time. So now we cut off after 3 weeks from the due date, and that's made a big impact. But also, the last thing we could do to make another impact would be to raise the deposits. So when I showed y'all that list in February, the $95,000, I think it was over 600 accounts. Our deposit right now is $100 for residential customers, whether you own or whether you rent. If that had been $200, just as an example, that amount we've written off would have been in half. So we would make a big impact by changing our deposit amount. I did, as I mentioned on Thursday, our staff is going through application by application to figure out if the customer is a renter or a homeowner, to put that information into our software. So although we were already asking for it on our application, we didn't have anywhere in the software to put it. So now we are going back and inputting that information. But today I spent time looking at the list that was written off to see what percentage were renters. I was kind of spot checking, but I had to make some assumptions. But out of the 600, it looked like almost 500 of them were renters. So we've said repeatedly that the renters are the problem. So one of the biggest changes on this, Elisa, if you want to show the fee chart, the deposit chart, would be to change the deposits for, it would be raising the owner deposit from 100 to 125. Yes.
That's the second one.
So for someone who owns their house, they would pay a deposit of $125. A renter would pay $225. A non-residential, which is commercial, we talked about this last week. There's kind of a wide arena when we're talking about commercial, but that is $225. Landlords in the past have not paid a deposit, but landlords keep popping up on our cutoff list, and I can't cut them off because they have a tenant living there. So I don't have a hold on a landlord. So I'm asking to start that, to have a $75 landlord deposit. And then our hydrant deposit is $1,250. We already have that in place. And then below that, just some fees that we have. Most of these, I think there was only one that changed. The only one that changed was our temporary service for a maximum of 30 days, increasing that from $25 to $50, because if they use a month's worth of water, $25 is not going to cover it, especially now with our rate changes. So that's the only change on that bottom section. Any questions?
In the past, we have given residential people their deposit back after a year of paying on time.
Correct.
Are we continue to do that?
We still do that.
Let me ask you a question. I don't remember you saying this on Thursday. So you have this landlord deposit. Does that mean that I own a rental house and I pay a deposit to the city, as well as my tenant pays a deposit to the city? I just pay it to you just for what?
So when they set up a landlord account, our system, we tag that person as landlord in our system. So when that tenant moves out, it defaults back to the landlord's name. So if the landlord goes in there and cleans, we're tracking that under their name. They'll get a bill just like everybody else, but they may, it may only be in their name for 10 days or something. So what I'm finding is they may not pay that because it wasn't that much money, but it builds up. And I have no way to collect that. So by having the $75, it may just be, 10 days of water usage here every couple of years, but at least I'll be able to collect it.
Okay, so let me clarify then. They pay the $75 deposit to establish service while the house is vacant.
Correct.
Not just because they have a rental property and you just
Correct.
keep it, because that's what it sounded like at first. So Councilman Best mentioned that after a year, you would get your deposit back if you had had 12 on-time payments.
Right.
I have some of the same concerns that Councilwoman McPherson made on Thursday about renters being able to afford the number of deposits that they have when they get a new house. They're not exempt from those same concerns that owners are. Would it be possible for us to have a system where if you were late, then we escalated your deposit as opposed to getting the deposit up front?
What do you mean?
So you establish your service, and then if you have a late, because one of the issues you're talking about has been resolved with this cycle billing that we did. And if it hasn't been resolved, it's been mitigated significantly. Georgia Power, for example, I have rental properties. Georgia Power, for example, if you pay a deposit and you establish service, as long as you're not late, then at the end of a year, typically you would get that back like you're talking about. But if you do happen to be late 1 month or in month 2 or 3, then they send you an extra deposit on your bill to keep your service. And
Your deposit goes up.
your deposit goes up while
Right.
you're in service as opposed to
Gotcha.
at the beginning.
The problem is if these are the customers that I can't get to pay anyway, asking them to put another 50. I mean, we can look at it. I did talk to Councilwoman McPherson earlier today, talking about this very issue. So even though we have shortened the time where we're cutting people off, so say someone had a $100 bill that they didn't pay on time, and I cut them off after 3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks have passed. They've now used $75 more of water. So the $100 bill plus the $75 that will be billed for those 3 weeks in that 3-week time period after the due date. So if they were to walk and not pay me, I'm out $175. That's just an estimate. But so it's not just the one bill. By the time we're cutting them off, they've still racked up, even though 3 weeks is better than what we were doing before. There's just a risk there.
In
So.
3 weeks, well, before we were at about 90 days, weren't we?
Yeah.
3 weeks is a lot better than.
It is a lot better. I mean, that's hundreds of dollars that we're being walked away from.
Should you give the deposit back after a year for renters, if that's such a problem of people leaving? Should that deposit go back, or should it always be that buffer so when somebody skips town? And then also, because we did talk,
There's 5 of us.
family of 5, just under $100 on the water bill. So I tried to think about a renter who's putting down their deposit for everything else. They're paying first, they're paying last, they're hooking up this, hooking up that. And if we were to charge them, instead of $225, charge $175, and this is based on a $100 bill. This is based on, a $100 water bill. And then if they were to miss 3 weeks, the average of the additional 3 weeks that they didn't pay, because that's when they get cut off. They get cut off then, that would be $175. What I'm trying to emphasize is, let's not get more than we need. What if that fixed it and we didn't have to get more? And we could look at it in 6 months and go, that didn't fix it, we're going to have to raise it up more. But if that covered it and it took care of it, why should we take more money from people than we need? And it just seems to me that would probably take care of almost everybody. Because that's based on a family of 5 with that kind of water sewer bill. And a lot of these renters don't have that many people in it. Well, some of them may have a couple families. I don't know. It depends.
Further comments? Okay. I would entertain a motion.
Councilwoman, did you want to make a motion that made that change?
Yeah. But I still think we ought to look at whether we ought to give it back after a year if that's a real problem in the renter thing. So maybe we can that be addressed administratively? No, that can't either. Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion that instead of taking on those fees, the only change that I'm requesting is that instead of asking for $225 from renters for a deposit, that we ask for $175.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to, okay,
That's a motion and a second, I think, to amend the
Yeah,
proposed
amend the charge.
resolution.
Fees, just for the renters,
to amend the fee as proposed by staff.
for the renter.
Well, to amend the fee as proposed by me, because it wasn't your
No, you're amending.
staff's proposal.
Right,
To
you're
amend
amending staff's proposal.
on the deposit fee for renters.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? All opposed? 3-2.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
You got one more
I think
motion
it
to go
would be
yet?
appropriate to now pass
we
the
have no
entire
choice.
resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution to set utility billing with the change we just made. Deposits and fees to be effective April the 1st this
Second.
year.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, let us know if
Tab C, Community Development. Bobby?
you think that's a good idea. I don't know.
Good evening, folks. Item number 1 is tab ABL-02-18. We have an application for an alcoholic beverage license for PKR Investments LLC to allow the applicant to sell retail packaged malt beverages and wine at 205 South Carroll Road, Villa Rica, Georgia. The licensee will be Susmita Pahari, who resides at 2287 Richmond Drive, Lithia Springs, Georgia. The applicant has complied with the conditions of the ordinance with regard to the legal notification requirements, has successfully passed a background check conducted by the Villa Rica Police Department, and there are no proximity restrictions that would hinder the issuance of the license. Our staff recommendation is to approve, and the applicant is present.
Any questions of staff? And P&Z, no, P&Z don't say this, never mind, this is the next one. Okay, is the applicant present? If you would come forward, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Nan Pahari, and I'm with my wife Susmita Pahari, and we are here for hearing for our application.
Okay, David, you want to?
Sure. Thank you for being here today. You understand that once this retail license, the alcoholic beverage license is issued to you, that you'll be able to sell beer and wine at your store. The city wants you to be aware that our police department regularly checks on whether or not sales are being made to underage people. You understand the laws with regard to that?
Yes, sir.
And we also want to make it known up front to you that the police department will be conducting sting operations where they will be sending underage people into your store to attempt to buy alcohol there. So it's very important for you to train all of your staff and employees to make sure that they card everybody routinely. And you understand all of that?
Yes, I do. We do have a still existing business in other different locations.
Okay.
So we do train our employees as well as the coming new employee as well. So we will continue doing it.
Yeah, it's very important to this community that we not be selling alcoholic beverages to underage people.
And I always say this, I started doing this a couple of months ago. We had a young person in this community die as a result of buying underage alcohol in a neighboring county. And I'm friends with that family, and even if I wasn't, that was a loss to this community. So we take that very serious as a council. So hopefully we never see you back up here standing before us because you sold alcohol to an underage person. So, any questions of the applicant?
I do have just what is the name of the business? Have you got a name yet?
Yes, we do. A corporation called PKR LLC, and the doing business is still the Carol Soppet as it was.
Are you still going to call it Carroll Road Shopette? Okay.
Yes, people know with that name.
They do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant?
How long have you owned this this location?
We just about to open. We're waiting for the licenses.
Just got it. Okay.
We are still doing construction in and out.
Okay, because I knew the previous owner had made some improvements to the
Right.
appearance of it and everything, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate some of that.
Yeah.
It's in my ward and it's right downtown, so I wish you well.
We'll try to keep it clean.
Thank you, sir.
Make a motion to approve alcohol
No,
beverage.
we got to have a public.
Excuse me.
No, we do not have to have a public hearing.
We do not have to have a
No.
public input meeting?
We
Okay.
haven't had any objections filed, and
Okay.
therefore you're not required to have a public hearing.
Okay, no objections were filed? Okay.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the alcoholic beverage application for PKR Investments LLC located at 205 South Carroll Road.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is tab RA-05-18, rezoning of property located at 78 Harold Road, Villa Rica, Georgia. William K., Sally D., and Sandy Williams are requesting to rezone the property located at 78 Harold Road from the current zoning, R20 residential, to office institutional, which is O&I. The property consists of 0.73 acres and is located in Ward 3. The purpose of the rezoning is for a future medical office. The rezoning application for this property is consistent with the future land use map, which calls for commercial, public institutional, and low-density residential in the area. After performing the analysis on the application, the staff, along with the Villa Rica Planning Commission, recommend approval with the following conditions. Number 1, permitted use is limited to business, medical, dental, and professional offices. And number 2 is, per the Unified Development Code, all improvements to be installed on the property prior to occupancy, and particularly the minimum parking requirements as listed per section 4.03B in the UDC, or Unified Development Code. And as required by Article 2, Section 2.01 in the Code of the City of Villa Rica, public has been notified in the Times-Georgian on February 11th, 2018, and a sign has been posted on the property, and all abutting property owners have received notification by certified mail. And in response to public notifications, residents within the surrounding neighborhoods have not contacted the city at the time of this report. And the applicant is present.
I would like to state that I live 3 houses down for this, so I will not take part in the discussion just for disclosure purposes.
Because this is unlike zoning, is there a requirement for a privacy fence?
The Unified Development Code in itself requires a whole set of buffers, etc., that you're going to be adjoining residential property. So all of the extras will be required.
Okay, thank you.
With the application
Thank
when they do that. And that also includes the minimum parking requirements. It's spelled out here, but the code takes care of that.
Any questions of staff? Is the applicant present?
Yes, the applicant's present.
Would you come forward, please? State your name and address for the record.
Ken Johns. It's Johns. I have 2 first names. I get William quite often. William K. It's my wife Sally. 2114 Osprey Cove in the reflections section.
Let's let the train go by.
Okay. Glad it's going by.
Please proceed.
We're longtime residents of the area. My wife and I both grew up here. We married, we lived in Atlanta, and then Mableton, and Douglasville, and Winston, and now we're back in Villa Rica, and very glad to be here.
Welcome home.
Thank you. We bought this property about 10 years ago, and at that time we felt like one day it would go commercial. We understand that it is in the city future land use plan. We are 2 doors down from Willowbrook, and the 2 lots between us and Willowbrook are already zoned O&I. Across the road is the Ashbrook Village, which I believe is zoned general commercial. And so we believe it's in the interest of the city as well as ourselves to do this, and we thank you for your consideration.
Any questions of the applicant? David, do we need to have a public hearing on this?
You do need to have a public hearing.
Okay, you may be seated, sir. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this change in zoning, please do so at this time. Seeing none, the discussion will revert back to the council for action.
I make a motion to approve the rezoning application from William K., Sally D., and Sandy Williams to rezone property located at 78 Harold Road from single-family residential to office and institutional with conditions.
Second.
Have a motion and multiple seconds. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? It is unanimous. Please proceed, sir.
Third item, Mr. Mayor, is the crosswalk at Wilson Street and South Carroll Road.
Amen. That's all I got to say.
Well, don't be.
Don't say amen
Don't,
yet?
no.
Okay, I'll hear you out.
There was a question that City Manager Barber and I have been talking about. This particular crosswalk is part of what HEH has to, in their striping portion of their contract, to put back. We met with C.W. Matthews guys this morning, and I asked that magic question that if we put this thing back, you guys pave West Wilson, what's it going to do to it? And he said you don't want to put it back just yet. So what I would like to recommend as part of the paving on West Wilson, we have 4 such crosswalks in thermoplastic that are required on West Wilson. Why don't we just let C.W. Matthews do those 4 that they're going to do on the paving and do this one as well?
Well, the question is when?
When is the
When?
15 days after they do West Wilson.
When
One,
are they going to do West
Two.
Wilson?
It's in the
3,
They can do thermoplastic a little faster than they can the other one.
West Wilson's in the middle of the pack, so they're starting
Yes.
out on Connors at.
We're 2 weeks
at
out
Publix,
probably
and
on
it'll
West
be
Wilson.
2 weeks.
So
And then 15 days for it to cure.
2 weeks, taking in that we'll probably have a few rainy days, or it'll be too cold to pave,
Well, you know,
somewhere in there.
If you have
best
any
case
control over
scenario,
that.
2 weeks, yeah, best case.
I just counted to 10 because I was always told if you were going to say something you probably didn't need to, just count to 10. So I have been waiting for several months for this crosswalk to be painted on South Carroll Road. Now, I understand. You make a valid point. If they're going to put asphalt on that road, then that's going to mess up the lines. I get that. I don't want to wait 6 more months for this crosswalk to be painted. That is a legal crosswalk that is used every day by folks. So if you can assure me that this is going to be done in a timely fashion, then I'm okay with that, even though I'm not okay with it. But I do understand the rationale.
Yeah, I mean, if we do it now, we're gonna look bad.
Trust me, we already look bad.
Well, that's not our biggest concern. We just don't want to throw away money. You mean we'll look bad because we're throwing away money?
Mr. Mayor, the latest
We should look bad if we're throwing
word
away.
from HEH is weather permitting, striping and the remaining driveway transitions will be done in the next couple of weeks, weather permitting.
No comment.
That's the latest. That's the latest.
Feels like that was said about this time last year.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. So you said the best case is 2 weeks. What's the worst case?
A month?
A month.
Okay, so by the time we come back and do this next month, if we go along with this, then We'll have that paved and the striping out there.
We'll have it paved.
Y'all heard that?
No, we're only gonna have it paved because he's saying 15 days to striping after the pavement cures.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
sort of, kind of.
Mayor,
Let me say this. You don't stripe on newly paved asphalt. South Carroll Road will not be newly paved asphalt. So when the asphalt is down on South Wilson, is it not reasonable then, because the trucks won't be tracking it, to stripe
As soon as it won't
South
track,
Carroll?
As soon as it won't track.
We don't have to wait 15 days after the asphalt has been put down on South Wilson, is what
Why
I'm
don't we
saying.
make it number one on the list of striping?
Mayor, I have a suggestion. Thermoplastic is the absolute best you can get.
Absolutely.
Why don't we just go ahead and paint the crosswalk in with traffic marking paint till we can get the thermoplastic
I think that's
installed.
an excellent idea.
I would have liked to done that
Thank you,
last
Chief.
year, but we kept waiting for the company I will not name to finish their other fixes.
We can have that done by the end of the week.
Well, I think that's an excellent idea.
It is, and as an engineer, you know that's part of the process. You put down, anytime you do a GDOT project, there's temporary paint that's put down until the thermoplastic. I think that's an excellent idea.
We'll make that happen.
You need a motion for that, or are you going to do it in-house?
No, we're gonna do it with our own folks.
Do it.
Great.
Charlie, you good with that?
It's a safety issue. It's been an ongoing safety issue.
Thank you, sir.
Since it got
Anything
paved.
else from me, sir?
No, I'm just so excited to get that.
I'm just tickled to death to be here.
And Charlie's going to be out there every day. I heard that, so I know that. You know, all kidding aside, how many miles of roads are we doing this year?
That number escapes me right now,
I don't
Mayor.
think we've ever totaled it that way.
I figured it up.
Dollars.
Yeah, I figured it up. It's a significant amount. We'll call it that. But we are making improvements to our roads, and I think that's important. Thank you, sir. Tab D, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am presenting the agreement between our city and our public defender. We have a contract that was given to us through Mr. Mecklin, and we are requesting that we approve the contract and allow Mr. Barber to sign that contract.
Chief, you don't have a cover sheet in here. Oh, okay.
We have it.
We did submit one.
It's in the limbo somewhere.
David, this is a question for you, and it comes from classes that I know Councilmember McDougal and myself took. But and it was, what was the name of the class? Post
Ferguson.
Municipal law post Ferguson.
Right. After the Ferguson, Missouri laws changed, the way cities did things specifically changed as a result of multiple lawsuits. And two of the things that changed was the way municipal court judges were appointed, supervised, managed, but also public defenders, who those public defenders reported to, received direction from. Mr. Mecklin, you have had a chance to look at that. That was a concern that I raised. And are you comfortable that we are within the new guidelines and laws as they relate to municipal courts?
I am, and we've paid a lot of attention to making sure that our municipal court is run the way that it is supposed to run. In the past, many times, not only the solicitor but the public defender were all essentially employees of the police department, which was a terrible system because you just don't want to have the public defender and the solicitor being wholly responsible, and the judge reporting to the police department. They are all independent. Here in the city of Villa Rica, they are all independent. The public defender has responsibility or reports for administrative matters to the city manager, and reports to the judge for the performance of their duties. They have no allegiance to the police department or the prosecution. which is the independence that the public defender needs to have to represent his or her clients.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Any questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve the public defender agreement as presented by Chief Mansour.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Wait,
Any discussion?
would you modify your motion?
Yeah, they didn't even have it on mine.
Who's going to do, I mean, do you have a person picked out?
That's a weird motion.
It's not on.
I don't have it.
Make a motion, council approve the city manager, Tom Barber, to hire Anna Barnes Mitchell as public defender and present her with the one-year contract, which would be this agreement we're approving.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not, all in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Chief, I'd like to ask a question.
You leave that man alone.
How many jaywalkers are we going to get in front of the chiropractor's office over on South Carroll Road? If they can't walk up for the newly formed walkway or go up to the red light to walk across, how many you reckon we're going in front of the chiropractor's office?
Tim, you don't know.
I'll get back with you on that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Moving right along, tab E, economic development. Chris?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council.
Maybe.
Very quickly, as I promised the staff, I'd only be about 2 minutes. We'll be out. We have a request from Meadowbrooks Memorial Memory Gardens and Jones Williams Funeral Home for our annual Easter sunrise service at the amphitheater. This is something that has been going on in the city of Villa Rica for 30 years. This is a standard request. As with any request where it causes for deviation of city policy, we come to the council for approval, and this is a request for approval at that time. There are no other requests from us from a staffing or equipment standpoint. This is just the use of the amphitheater.
Questions? Discussion? I would entertain a motion.
Here you go. I got you right here.
Yeah.
Just hand me and I'll read it.
See, you spoiled us now when we don't have the motions in front of us.
It's in front of me.
I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding that allows Meadowbrook Memory Garden, Jones Williams Funeral Home, and area churches to use the Neal Amphitheater for the purpose of hosting the 30th annual Villa Rica Community Easter Sunrise Service and waive all rental fees.
Second.
Have a motion, multiple seconds to approve. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Okay, it is unanimous.
You're no longer king of PowerPoint. We have a queen of PowerPoint.
Mr. Medlin, do we have any executive session items?
I'm not aware of any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I would entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion in multiple seconds. All in favor? We are adjourned.
Mr. Elliott, you are so correct. I bow to you.
I wasn't impressed by Sarah's PowerPoint.
2 hours. He said 2 hours to the council meeting. I said hour.